Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. It's Nate Miller from DigiFX. Thank you for joining me. Let me go ahead and just switch views into my triple screen mode here. So, as you can see, I've got a new broadcast set up here, along with some other things I've been trying to figure out as we move along in this journey of mobile and game development, along with some of the other media stuff I've been doing over the years. So, thank you for joining me today, and if you're going to tune in throughout the day, I'm happy to share with you kind of the stuff we got going on here. Behind me, in the screens above me, you can see I have a 3-screen layout here. This is a new setup that we just built here at DigiFX. Specifically, this is my personal at-home workstation. It's a new i9 10-core processor with a bunch of other cool stuff. My graphic card, admittedly, is outdated for this kind of stuff. It's a 1070 Ti, which still does the job, but you know, I'm waiting to get my hands on new RTX 380 and some of the other stuff that you'll see gamers talk about in this day and age. So today I was hoping we could go over kind of the new stuff that we got going on. We are using some new game engine stuff here. In front of me I have an Unreal. Unity is still something that we work with every day, and something that's still on the back burners. I'm just transitioning more into other things using Unreal, VR, and more AAA console style development. And Unity I'm keeping for a lot of the mobile and the AR stuff for now, because I have it set up over the years. So if I go ahead and just change my screen real quick, go ahead and just to show you kind of my setup here. If I go ahead and go to the left one right here, you can see I have my actual window with everything that you're seeing here, and I can easily toggle through everything. So for the most part, I'm going to be messing around with single screens for the sake of getting the most out of sharing what I'm doing here. And if I go into something like the content browser, which I have laid out to the right here, I may go into this full screen layout, or just go into this specific screen itself, which sometimes I forget the layout here because it's backwards in my scene selector here. So the right is on the left and the left is on the right. So I may have to switch it at some point, but it's something that I have to change as we go here. So the other day when I was streaming, I was just doing some asset collection, and in Unreal here you see I just kind of have some assets that are, now this is just a staging area for me, so nothing is really, this is not a level or anything. I'm just importing a bunch of assets I'm finding on the internet and that I've had, and we're making sure they're textured right, seeing how they function and react in the engine here. And you can say I have a horse that I imported, which if I play this, it should you should do a little animation here along with some other animation. And so we have a windmill there that has some rotation in the distance, and if in the far off distance, if I click on this satellite, if I can click it easily, just because I'm in game mode here, I can zoom here. You see we have some more stuff here. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get a feel for the scale of the engine that we're using. And also you can see this is our floor plane here, and then we are using one of Unity's default assets they give you to create a background environment, which I think when you're on the ground level actually looks really good. And so as we go, I'm going to import some stuff. We're going to do some cool things with material texturing, along with using some blueprints to get some stuff in motion. Not really any game logic today because, again, I'm just kind of setting stuff up. Game logic will be coming in the upcoming weeks, specifically for Unreal. And we also be bouncing back into Unity sometime next week, working with Magic Leap and some of our Oasis live stuff that we've been doing in the past here. So you can see there's some things where the landscape that I have here and the background landscape, they don't really line up. So I'm probably going to have to fix the landscape to where it lines, and also figure out how to make the actual texture morph into this so it's not this drastic line here within the gameplay, or even create something new. But what I like about this scene is that I find that it's a lot more interesting for myself when I develop in kind of an environment versus just a white square box. And this kind of brings it generates ideas. It gives you ideas of what you can create and lay out in the engine itself. So this is why I'm working on this grassy little layer area, and you can see that it renders pretty good in real time with the streaming and the motion background, which probably isn't helping performance, but I'm also trying to test the capabilities of my broadcast system as I do this, and I share more stuff with everybody here. So let's see, let me just figure out what, oh, okay, so this is where I'm not sharing myself. I am sharing the screen to the left of me, which doesn't have me. So now you can see me talking as I work here. So this is probably the screen I'll work on majority of the time, just because it is the main scene we're going to be looking at here. And I will toggle around to the stuff needed, like I said, this as well, which is our content browser here. So just looking at the content browser here, I have 3 windows set up. I have the actual edit plane for the materials and the blueprints, and then we have our message log for when we import stuff, and then the main content browser here, which if I go into the main scene, you see here I have a bunch of templated stuff, or I shouldn't say these are examples of scenes and environments that are set up, which I'm pulling from that Unreal provides and other third-party users provide. So we can go check some of the stuff out, because we will be pulling stuff into the scene. But for the most part, everything that I'm importing today is actually behind me in right here, for all these WinRAR files that I've taken from Sketchfab, along with some other sites here. So I can just go ahead and just open up, and you can see I was actually looking for carnival/circus stuff. The theme of this environment, again, this is a few different games I'm just staging stuff for, but this specific one is a kind of expansive gameplay. So you're going to start in this little area in a backyard, and then as you unlock stuff, you're going to expand to a bigger, broader environment here. And so For instance, you're going to see circuits in the background along with windmills and other cool things in the distance that you're going to be able to visit using certain tools as we get there. So I collected enough stuff so we can just start diving in with the material, texturing a lot of the assets, importing them in, and Unreal does a really good job of making it pretty straightforward with texturing. Not as simple with the blueprint stuff and the logic. That's a little bit more complicated in my opinion from some of the Unity stuff I've done in the past. But it's also just a learning curve of stuff working differently. And I do find that there are pluses and minuses to different game engines, specifically not Unreal and Unity alike. There's a lot more out there that have their own quirks. And you really have to get just used to the workflow and the methodologies, how stuff works. And that's something I'm learning every single day as I do this myself. So I'm just going to go in here and we're going to find a few more things real quick to add in if it's easily accessible for us and we're allowed to import it. And if not, we'll just move on real quick. This is an interesting carousel here. So I will say that there are a few different ways to import animation within Unreal that I am finding. There is the default animation that's key within the model that works sometimes, but I find when you actually have animation that is a child object of an actual mesh object that holds it, the animation gets screwed up and you're better off using the blueprints, which I used for the windmill that I was showing you earlier here. So I'm not really seeing much. Let me just type in Carnival because I think I found some cooler stuff here before. And I already downloaded some things that we're going to import in a second here. So I'm actually looking for massive Carnival stuff, not necessarily smaller items, because the goal here is to create an outside... Ooh, that's some loud audio over here. Let's turn that on just to see what we got going on here. So this would be interesting if it was a higher quality model here. It seems like it's kind of cartoonish and small. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to work for us. The card itself doesn't look like it's what we want. But maybe what I can do that kind of sparks an idea to see if there's other roller coasters available we can put into our game. Again, I'm trying to keep it relatively uniform in terms of look and feel. And when you're pulling from different models and designers and creators and developers, they all have their own style of development and creation there, so you got to kind of keep it aligned. Let's see what this one's all about. I've been trying to improve my key too, but you'll notice I'm still having issues where there's just not enough lighting in my dark, little transparent there, so I do apologize. I am going to fix that in the studio. So this is cool, but again, this is kind of more of cartoony. I'm looking for stuff I can implement into a real world. Okay, so this looks like a cool Blender one. Let's see what this is all about here. Alright, well there's no track, so this is definitely not complete. Alright, and... Okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to hold off on this for now, because it obviously is going to require more researching for me to find something that I want for the actual game itself. So let's just go ahead and just start importing the stuff that we already have here. So for this, I'm going to switch over to my right screen, which should be this one. Okay, and you're not going to see what I'm doing here, but off screen, this is why the third screen actually kind of works better sometimes. I'm just going to start unpacking a lot of these WinRAR files here, and then we'll start importing stuff within the content browser you see I have to the right. So there's not really any method in the madness of what we unpack first. We eventually have to get all these in here today, and then we're going to start placing them in material and fixing them. But I want to make sure that it's stuff that I actually want to bring in and not things that I just downloaded because I enjoyed them here. So I know I just downloaded something that was... Where did I do that? I guess... I thought I just saved a Wild West Small Wooden, Locomotive, Tree, CCT, Firewood, Ice Freezer, Dumpster, door. I thought I had downloaded a few additional ones here, but I don't see them. Alright, so the Ring Bells one, and then the Monster Circus is the other one, but I don't know where that is on the... Okay, but we'll start with this one, because this one actually was one I just recently saw here. Okay, so you can see, and again, if that's too small and I start working in the game image, I'll actually zoom in, but I actually think this is better for you seeing how I work, and you can also see my streaming stuff on the side there, which maybe helps and maybe doesn't help. I did at one point try to stream at the resolution of 3 screens on OBS, but I couldn't get, or I probably wasn't doing it right, but I couldn't get YouTube to accept the contrast ratio of what I was trying to do, and so I just gave up and I just kind of shrunk it all down into one screen. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to export everything out, and usually all you have to do is pull out the actual 3D file, and unfortunately in Windows you can fix this, but it doesn't tell you the extension. This is 3D object unless you look at it. I think you can, I know with Windows you can actually say show the extension, but I haven't set that up on this new build here. Okay, so this is just going to be called whatever it is. Let's just call it Monster. I'm just going to call it Carnival because I don't really remember exactly what it was here. Okay, and then in my content browser, I actually am importing stuff in my own DigiFX file folder, and that's just so I can keep all the stuff I've downloaded separate and keep this organized for my sanity. And I have characters, which I only have a horse right now, and then the objects, which, so we'll go ahead and make a new folder here, and let's call this again Carnival, and I'll probably rename this at some point. But we're just organizing and importing fun things. For the FX imports, I usually keep it default. If there was animation on it, I may consider turning that off, but because this one doesn't have animation, it doesn't matter. And that's pretty much it. The materials, I do like to create a new material when I import it, and that's just preference there. And also I'm having some teriyaki chicken from I ordered last night for lunch. So you see me eating occasionally throughout the stream, as I do. Okay, so we're just importing that. With that finish, and you should see it pop up within our Carnival objects, but for some reason I don't see it. There we go. It's just a lot of objects there, so it took a second. Okay, so this is one of those things where it imported a lot of stuff here. And so best practices would be to have this all one static object within the game, within a 3D program here. And that may be what I will do for something. If it only has 3 or 5, I usually keep it separate. But when it has this many objects, it doesn't really help me too much in terms of when I'm creating the asset there. And you can import it and drag it in. I'll just show you what that's like real quick, and hopefully the computer won't crash on me for all this stuff, or Epic will, or the Unreal will play nice here. Okay, so it looks like it's still thinking. And while we do that, while that's doing its thing, okay, so it did import it. It's just really small. And so, again, I don't necessarily like that this is a bunch of different things, so I'm going to actually undo that. And I will delete this, and I'm going to actually fix it in Cinema 4D real quick. And I use Cinema 4D because I'm big on After Effects and using Adobe products, and they play nice. I know this isn't the traditional method for development. People use 3D Studio Max, Maya, which is something I also use, but I just like Cinema 4D. It's straightforward, and I understand it. I use it for After Effects, and again, when I create 3D models for games, I also bring them to After Effects to do like storylines and animations and motion motion sequences, and so it's kind of the easiest way for me to deploy at different places with the same models using certain strategies I've had in the past. So let's go ahead and just import our Carnival here. Ooh, and it doesn't like it, and that's because this is an older version of Cinema 4D. So so what I can do is, all right, I can just open up in Blender real quick. Blender is, this is kind of like a way I cheat when I can't open something. Let's see if I can bring this in here. Oh, but I also forget Blender doesn't really like it when you drag stuff in there. It wants you to import them, which... The biggest thing I find is that when you have all these different programs, you got to get used to the different workflows. Okay. Turn my music up just a little bit, but it's not too loud. Okay, Blender is also confused by this model. If this just doesn't work, I'm just going to move on to something easier. Okay, I forgot I didn't have that here. Okay, so we got all the groups in here. So again, the only thing I'm really going to do here is I'm just going to export this as in. I'm not going to touch anything. I'll delete all the stuff within Cinema 4D and clean it up. So now I'll export. Let's just try an FBX real quick again. And I won't even name it. I know that's not good best practice, but again, this is just a handoff to the actual program there. And so if this doesn't work, we will do it with as an OBJ, but it's just the version of that you can see. And the reason why I like the FBX is because it actually keeps the textures versus sometimes the OBJ won't. Okay, so we have a cube here. I don't need that. We don't need a light. We don't need a camera. What is this all about? So this is our 3D model that we were importing. And so now I'm just going to clean up the crap that I don't really need here. And I'm really only interested in this tent. And so, and again, in Cinema 4D, it is actually H, not F, that center stuff, which, and a lot of other stuff. So, okay, looks like Oculus finished installing something, which... Okay, so again, this is the probably good we did this in here because just importing this all into the game engine isn't the best idea. And hopefully we can just clean this up and also spin it around and it's taking care of stuff we don't really need here. You know, I usually just try to have one item, one solid item. So all these little boxes, although they're cool, they're kind of not really what we want. So an easier way to do this, you can just click this and then go over everything right here. And we'll just delete stuff. I'm also having, all right. Oops. I got deleted that bottom part there. Alright. Also, I'm gonna change the random. My playlist always plays this. Oop. I don't really want to listen to any Beeb right now. The Beeb. Nothing against the Beeb. Okay, so a little tedious here, but this is going to save us a lot of trouble within the game engine, and that's definitely something we want to do here. We want to, so again, you can just click on an object and press H, and it should delete it. But we want to make sure we don't delete anything that's not. Alright, so let's delete. I'm not even sure what that is, to be honest. Okay, and I forget what the keyboard shortcut is for turning around, so I just use this little thingy here. What's that? What's that thing? Okay, alright. Almost done. And then I'll show you how we can connect all this stuff once we have everything else that we don't need out of the way here. This little balloon animal. Okay. Alright. Got some dots here. Almost done. This little box. These. Circular thing. I don't know what this piece is right here, but I don't think it's supposed to be a part of it. Is it like a rain cover or a mud cover or something? But we're just gonna ditch it. We don't need it. We do need that. All right. Also, I don't plan on fully texturing stuff today. I'm just gonna get stuff in there, and I can go back and texture it. The goal is just to get the models clean. So that's a lot cleaner, as you can see, and everything seems to be in place. I may actually change, you know, we want these flags to actually move around the game engine, so we'll probably re-import the flags, but for now I'll just leave them. And so because I may want to actually change this, it would probably be good for me to save this out as a 3D file. So I'll just call this Circus Tent, right? And then I'll save that as a Cinema 4D file. And okay, and then let's go ahead and select all, and let's delete all of these. And you can see how all those files really take up a lot of space there, and this is probably the best way to do it. Okay. It's also, I'll rename this to Circus Tent now that I know that's what it is. And it's good to always name it before you import stuff, because the game engine likes to realign all the reference files, and you can screw stuff up if you don't. Okay, so the only other thing we really have to do now is we just have to combine all this, and you know, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't for me. I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but usually what I can do here is I find that if I make an empty object, or if I group this, so if I were just to group this as so, I think I just can say group objects, and now I can just say circus, and this is specific to Cinema 4D here, this older version, Circus Tent. I'm pretty sure that if I select this and I say, oh wait, no, that's it. So I select the top one, and I come all the way down and select the bottom one, and I say delete. Alright, it kind of worked there, but you can see I deleted some stuff that didn't get imported, so it's a little quirky. I don't know if this has been fixed in newer versions of the 3D program here, but that's still not exactly what we're looking for. So I wonder if I just pull all this out, if that's what the problem is. So let's just do a little cleaning here. I think it has to do with these being in their own little groups here. So we're just going to clean this up real quick. Anything that is parented somewhere else, we're just going to pull it out. And I'm hoping that this is the fix for us, but I could be wrong. What is this thing? See, some of these things don't even, they're just empty. So maybe cleaning them up wouldn't hurt us to begin with. Alright, alright. just going to go through one on one and see if I delete something here that looks important, and if not, I'm just going to roll with it. Alright. I think I'm deleting stuff on the inside, which I don't really care about what's on the inside. This is just for the exterior. That one's important, which is annoying. It's just named to group something and not something else here. It's our circus sign. Okay. So again, I'm going to do the same thing with the circus sign. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out and then hope that this is going to fix the issue we're having with the combining everything. Okay, so let's try that one more time. I take my circus tent and I come down here. Fingers crossed. No, well, we fixed the sign from doing that, and you can see everything's now one object, which is what we want, but we lost our lines there. So I'm going to try one more time, and I'm going to figure out where these lines are. Okay, and that's why, because they're in a group right here. So obviously, it wants to import stuff with materials, which is probably why that's happening there. Okay, and then this one, it looks like it's similar, so we'll do the same thing here. And I know this is annoying, but this is actually a pretty extensive model here, so you usually don't have to do this if it's set up correctly. Last time, boom. So that's exactly what we want. Now we have our circus tent, and it's one object, and it's textured, and everything seems to be in place. I don't know what the thing in the middle is there, but we're just going to keep it. So this should import a lot nicer into the actual game engine, and the textures should be stick with the model. Fingers crossed again. So, all right, change that. All right. So I'll just go ahead and export an FBX here, call it Circus Tent. Circus is only, kind of forget. Let's see here. Yeah, for some reason I was thinking circus. I don't know why. I thought it would be spelled wrong. So export FBX. Circus tent. Save that to desktop. Okay. There we go. So if you're not familiar with Unreal, it's different than other engines in the sense that it just eats up all 3D files and makes its own Unreal file. So honestly, I don't know if that's a user-friendly good thing, because you kind of like, if you have something in one engine, maybe sometimes you want to use it in something else, and you can't do that with these files. Versus something like Unity, you could import any kind of 3D file and reuse it. And so I've actually been taking third-party files of 3D objects I've had and bring it in here. So, you know, that's good for Unreal in terms of making everything proprietary for the engine. It's not so good for you if you tend to bring stuff in somewhere else. So just keep that in mind, that it does just want to eat it up and convert it into an Unreal file. And so all I did was I took our little circus file here, and I'll say import, and it should be a lot quicker now because it's only one file, and you see it has a lot of materials now. So unfortunately the materials didn't get saved, but because they're named appropriately, because we kept them, that makes it a little bit easier for us. And this is where I'll show you how to use the material editor within Unreal to make all this happen here. So okay, so we'll just drag our textures in. So this is personal preference. I tend to just drag everything in the main folder, but you can obviously bring in the textures in its own folder, which is probably more traditional. But I find that organizing everything in its own folder is good enough for myself. And so once that imports, we should have our textures in place here. Just like I have chopsticks. I eat a lot of shabu at home. I go to the H Mart, which is this Chinese supermarket, and they don't have the disposable bamboo chopsticks that you'll get for takeout. So I have to buy all these reusable, like these are metal ones or wood ones, and so I have probably hundreds of chopsticks that I just use for all the Asian food. And so it comes into play when I'm eating teriyaki chicken. I can use my chopsticks over my forks. So just try to keep stuff legitimate. And also, here's a fun thing. This is my grandfather, my late grandfather's mug. He used to work out of Murphy Insurance Co. So the one thing that, you know, if he's watching over me right now, I would like to think that it empowers me to do something for my family name there. So a little Murphy mug keeps me going. So you can see over my head, we got all the textures in there, and so I'll just go ahead and just zoom in real quick, and we will just, for a second here, just do this. We'll start messing with the materials. So this can be overwhelming, and I did pick a very overwhelming model to show the first time how this works. Because it's not necessarily, not everything is lining up with the texture names, and usually if whoever does this is good, they'll name the material to match the model, and I don't see that here, so we kind of have to just eye it. But if I open the dirt one here, you see it's going to import a default one. We can go ahead and delete that. And also I'm noticing there's no really normals or other textures here that will give us what we want in this circumstance. So I'm actually going to hold off on this one for now because this is going to take a little bit too much time to figure out, and we're just going to re-import something in that's a little bit more straightforward for us, and I can show you what I was about to do there in terms of the materials. And so because we imported all of this, you can delete, save all this stuff. I tend to save the original zip that I got, and I'll drag it to the other side. And I know you can't see that, so let me go ahead and... So I'll just take it from the left to the right and put it on. This is the stuff I've already imported. And then all this other stuff that I created, I can go ahead and delete. I am going to save the tent Cinema 4D because we did some major changes on that. And this is just for keeping my my development organization in place pretty good. So because this also is not a zip, I will drop this in my specific folder that I save all my 3D models to. Alright, so this is our DigiFX backups here, and a few terabytes of stuff on this. And then I can just go in here, and I should organize this specific to the project, but I just had this specific to just the type of thing it is, the file. And so that's just for me. If I ever know I need to find something, I go into my 3D file. And so hard part is figuring out how to format. It should be a format 3D object. Where is it? Format. 3D model right here. And then you can see I have different models here. And I'll just drag it in for now because this all has to be organized at some point. And it's not a job I plan on doing soon. But there you go. Now I have that file saved. Google Drive will back that up so I can delete that too. And let's go on to the next one. So let's try this ring a bell one. Okay, same thing. I'll just drag the source in the file out right below here. We'll open up the source, and this is a really interesting thing that Sketchfab likes to zip stuff within zips, and I'm guessing that's just when you download it, it creates a zip within the files that sit on the root directory. Alright, so hammer hop. We should import this into a 3 file and clean it up, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to call it what it's called here. Hammer hop. Open that up. And hammer hop. So usually I just import it like this, and if it's really, really messy, I'll just clean it up. For the sake of importing, this also looks like it's pretty messy, so 200 files there. it's about done. Yeah, same kind of deal. Unfortunately, all these models that I'm bringing into the game engine are pretty big and not really optimized for this. They're just kind of models. But you can see when you import it, all the stuff that's in yellow, even though it's all separate, it still wants you to select everything. So if I just bring this in here, let's just see what the shaders will do to it. The good thing about when you import it directly is usually the textures know where to go, versus if you import something new, you usually have to retexture it. So looks like it's just doing its thing, thinking about what it needs to do, and it's going to start compiling all the shaders. So let's see what this looks like, and then we can just kind of clean it up as we are playing around with this. It's also on its side. So not the best way of importing this stuff. I'm kind of skipping steps here. I'm just bringing stuff in and cleaning up as fast as possible, when realistically what you'd want to do is you'd want to bring this into a 3D program and clean it up to optimize it for a game. Alright. So we'll let those shaders compile. Another reason why you want it as one object is it creates... You don't want all this stuff just for one object. So let's pick something that would probably be simple. Simple shelter. But this simple shelter is good. I really like how everything's done in real time in Unreal. I think that's the one thing that wins me over in this engine, is that although it's quirky with some of the stuff and not as straightforward, I like the workflow of like working with it while you're working. Stuff just works in the background. I think that's really cool, and you don't feel like you have as much downtime. I can do other things. I don't have to wait for this to import or compile. This will do it. And you know, obviously that's just based on the model. The fact this has so many shaders, this is not going to be an optimized 3D file for us here. But let's just see what it looks like when it's all compiled. It's almost done. Also, I was having issues where I was overclocking my RAM. I have G.Skill 3600 RAM, and the computer just didn't like it. It kept on like resetting, blue screening, and so I'm seeing if it's at stock right now. It's only at 2600 or speed, or I don't know. I don't know what the stock speed is, but it's not nearly as fast. But hopefully that'll make the system it's more stable with all the broadcasting, the game engine, and you know the motion space background you see going on there. Hopefully that fixes it for the better. All right, so we're almost done, and hopefully this will actually do something for us here instead of just staying white and colorless. Yeah, alright, so that actually didn't do what I wanted it to do. But sometimes it just has to take a second to think about everything. Okay, so unfortunately this is another one of those models where it's not gonna do any justice for what we're trying to accomplish here. So I'm just gonna leave that for now. I'm gonna put this aside over my third screen here, and I'm going to come back to this later and optimize it and see if that's worth importing into the game here, or the staging area. So let's try another one. Okay, so this is windmill I imported recently, and then actually has a blueprint attached to it. We'll do some more stuff with animation within the blueprints within the engine itself. And I plan on scattering these on the hills back here so that when you're in the background, they're kind of like doing their own thing. In the distance, I think it'll be cool. Just like you can see the, well, you can't see it probably from the stream, but if I go here, you can see on that hill, there's a little, you know, there's that satellite, which I think is awesome. I think that's like one of those things where, and if you look over here, you can see the house. So super cool kind of large-scale environment that I'm going to try to create specifically for one of the things we're doing. And I like how it all gets laid out here. So I'm just going to go down the line. This isn't the one I just did, is it? Yeah, that was it. That was the hammer hop. Okay, so let's put that over there. We got our stuff we need right here. Let's just go to the soda vending machine. Come on, it's gotta be easy. Another thing you need to know is that if you have a same folder, name the same, it's gonna save the same folder. So what I do is, just so I don't save stuff in the wrong folder, is I'll rename this to something else. Just so it doesn't save it into the original one. So let's put an underscore there. Come on, Windows, what the hell? I just transitioned to working back on PC when I built this. I mean, I've had PCs my whole life, and I've been building power PCs my whole life. Behind me, I have 5 or 6 workstations for the office that I've been updating and getting ready for. But you know, I've been working mostly mobile, like just my MacBook, just for simplicity. And so I'm getting a little rusty on getting back into the whole how Windows likes to operate and some of the quirks. And I think as long as I balance out my workload on both the PC and Mac side of things, I'll keep my memory fresh and everything should be good there. Alright, so new folder, soda machine. Right. This one has got to be a winner. What do you think? Same thing, drop the source and folder in there. Actual model. And this is a DAE model, which is, I think it's Collida model. Okay, so for this one, I'm pretty sure Cinema 4D will allow for an import here. And it does. So we'll just do that. And this is actually, even though it looks kind of funky, this is actually textured correctly here. These just represent the textures that we're going to import and do. And so this is going to be a perfect example of on how to show how to use materials within the actual game engine itself. So file, export, FBX, soda machine. Again, this is a model that's not specific to this, what I'm doing here, but it's just something I'm going to import and eventually use at some point. All right. So we got that. And we'll import our soda machine. Say import OK. And textures. Select all. Drag those babies in there. And yes, we want to create normals with the textures there. Okay, so this individual did this appropriately, and I'm going to zoom in just so you can see this better. You can see every material has a name. They named all the textures according to the material, so it's very easy to align these 5 materials up here. So to do that, it's simple. You click on the material, You drag it out, and it's a little hard working with this minimalized on the smaller screen. Believe it or not, 3 screens is not enough. I think I have to go 6. And I think in my next build in the office, I'm going to do a Threadripper build with a 6-screen setup. I just need to get the budget for it. Okay, so you can delete this, and then I'll take my 5 body materials. And this is what I really actually like about this engine, is that how straightforward it is. And I can't say that's the same for everything. I mean, everything, it's other stuff is a little bit more quirky there. Okay, so now we just have to look for our albedo, or I don't even know how to say that, but I know that's the texture. And we'll just match it up, and we'll just put in the base color. This is a emissive, metallic, normal, and roughness. So we know our normal goes into our normal right here. We know our metallic goes into our metallic, which is right there. And we know our roughness goes into our roughness. And I'm guessing, I always screw up these naming things, but I'm pretty sure this is the same as specular, but I could be wrong. And we'll apply that. Okay, so the beauty of that now is that now our model that we have here, that I can just drag in right here, already has this texture in place. And if I just press F to zoom in, and I'll just scale this up. There we go. And I'll scale it as much as I can. There you go. So we already have one of our textures in place, and you can see it's not the best texture. I mean, I don't know if that's just the reflection. It's kind of a weird texture, to be honest. I might want to reuse a material that's already within the engine that's not as shiny. But if you look at this grill right here, it's like kind of a similar thing to that. It's got a lot of reflectivity. So, but it's working, and so I can just do this 4 more times really quickly. So I'll go in the buttons, and this one only has 4. Okay, and that should be normal. That should be roughness. And we'll delete that. This will be the color. I have to reference this to that because sometimes I mix them up. Okay, apply that, and that should fix our material there, and it does. So you see we have a little, now we have our texture, we have our little Pepsi logo here, which eventually will probably ditch a lot of this stuff because it's not the best textures. I kind of want to, this individual, obviously specialize this, and I'll probably just make it kind of a generic one, or we'll create our own in ads, or and you can do that very easily by going in here, show in folder, or no, it's I want to actually open it in the actual open source location right here, and I can just open this up within Photoshop here. And so I'll just show that real quick to people that don't. Let's Express. That's not what I want. So Photoshop for a second, and I can show you how easy it is to update this. But also notice that this is not the right texture we want to edit. That's on we dragged in. We actually want the one that's going to be in the documents in the actual project here. So Unreal Project, Staging, Content, DigiFX, Objects, Soda Machine. Okay, I don't know why that's empty. What's going on here? Oh, that's weird. Are they all empty? No? That's weird. I don't know why it's empty, but if I refresh it. Maybe it's because I have to reopen the game engine, but what it's going to show you is if I edit that texture, it updates it, which I'm pretty sure most people know that do this kind of stuff there. So we won't mess with that for now. Also, you'll notice that I keep everything that I'm working on outside of these folders, and then when I'm done, I'll drag them into the objects just for organization. So, really quickly, I'm just going to go ahead and bang these out here. And then we should have a fully accessible soda machine to get digital pop. Okay, pretty obvious. You also notice how the normal looks different, even though they're in the same program, which I find interesting. Roughness, and then this one's going to be metallic. We'll go ahead and apply that. Okay, a couple more. For the glass, I'm actually probably going to reuse a glass within the game engine. That's already there. So I'll skip that for now. And that's just because I kind of like the way the engine sets up the glass looks versus stuff that you'll set up. But it's personal preference. I mean, sometimes you may want to keep it separate. So this is the metallic. Again, I'm just using this naming convention to reference that in case I confuse them. Because the metallic and the roughness you can mix up sometimes if you're not careful, which wouldn't be a huge deal. You probably wouldn't even notice, but it's just one of those things where, and again, emissive, I'm guessing is specular. Usually it's called specular, I thought, but we'll just do it that way. Okay, so I don't really understand the texture of that. So maybe what's happening here is that this is actually not specular. So let's just go ahead and see what happens if I break that connection and fix it. Does that do anything for us? I don't know. Alright, well, I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And then, like I said before, I'll go in our content and I'll search glass. And what's important to note is that if you do take something from the folder here, you want to make sure that you don't edit the material, because of course it's going to affect that material in all objects is it connected to, and that's just a pretty common thing across the board from all game engines here. Also switch in this view, or maybe I'll switch back into my regular view. And then so what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a glass that I think looks good, and this is as simple as just going here, dragging it on, and look at that. Now we have a transparent view, and you can go ahead and play around with all these and whatever one you want. It will update it. That one's kind of quirky. That's also because I think I put it on the body instead. So we'll just keep that one for now. It's better. Okay, so not a perfect example of materials looking great, but you can see we now have a pretty straightforward textured object that we brought in using basic, and it's still compiling some stuff here, so let's do that for a second. Oh, it's actually taking a while. The whole thing. So things like this, I'm obviously not gonna use in the backyard of this scene, but I am eventually gonna put it in like some some area in the far off distance within the map. So what I've been doing here is I've been dragging stuff that I'm not really using, kind of in different areas. So you can see I have a bunch of water tank stuff and towers and different things. This carnival wheel hasn't been textured, and I have to figure out how to actually have the pivots, the chairs actually, so that's a work in progress. But I'll just kind of drag this over to where it needs to be, and then I'll put it in the objects, and I'll come back to it when I need it. So, pretty straightforward. Go over here, and this is kind of our models that we are not forgotten, but not being used. Oh, I just noticed all the soda cans have their own textures in here. That's cool. But you also notice how, look how the can part is actually transparent. And so that's something, that might be because they also use the glass texture or something, so we'll have to figure that out. But you can see we have our model there. So good, we'll do that. On to the next one. Okay, go ahead and drag that in objects. And let's go ahead and mess with the windmill real quick. So I didn't really talk about how I did this, but I think it's probably important to note how I set this up. So if we go in the blueprint, open the level one here. This is our level blueprint. It's just a it's just like the entire scene. It's not specific. And so this is the actual rotation blueprint that I set up to make this blade rotate. And so one thing that I kind of forgot about, because I haven't used Unreal for a while, past couple of years, I was using it for VR a few years ago when it first was a thing, and then I switched over to Unity for stuff. It was kind of quirky on how when you import stuff, the pivot within the game engine, it still wants to be at the 0, point. So what I had to do here is I had to re-import this. I had to zero out this blade, and I had to re-import it and then drag it to where it needs to be, and that allowed for it to work correctly. So now you can see that if I let's see here. So if I just play this, this is simulating this blade spinning. It's a very simple rotational sequence here, and I just set up a variable, and then the variable here I can change the speed, and it works fine now. It looks really good, and I can reuse this and duplicate it. But when I first imported it, I was having issues where it was rotating. The pivot was at the base of the object, where the pivot of this is. This pivot wasn't up there. It was down here, just like this pivot's down here. And so one thing I couldn't really figure out, and just reading online, just catching up on all this stuff and the new stuff, is that even if you click on this, if I alt-click that, I'm supposed to be able to go up here. Right, I'm supposed to be able, oh wait, actually let me make sure I'll do this one. So I can click on this, alt middle click, make sure I'm not screwing anything up that I have fixed. Alt middle click. Okay, and then I can go here, pivot, set offset here, and then I can go hit there, and I can say pivot set as pivot offset. That actually might work now. All right, so it did work now. So I was having issues before where I couldn't get that to work. So I just imported it through the 3D program itself, so I didn't have to mess with it within Unreal Engine using blueprints or what I just showed you there. And it was a little bit more precise. I can go into the 3D program. In my case, it was Cinema 4D here, and I could just go into this quad view here, and I can just pivot it. I can select the object I wanted to change the pivot. I can select the pivot, and then I can look in the side view and the front view, and I can align it to the perfect place to where it was going to rotate and it wouldn't be offset. Because a lot of times when you're setting a pivot to rotate something, if it's not exactly at the 0, point, you're going to notice that it does sway a little bit. And so this, in my mind, was the easiest, most straightforward way to get it working. The only downside is I had to re-import this, and it created kind of a separate model convention. So this is another way you can do it. The downside of that is it's obviously not as precise. You can see that's not necessarily centered. So if I were to rotate this, it wouldn't be rotating center. Now, obviously, this is not one that I would want to rotate, but perhaps I would want to put this at I would want this to pan, or probably specifically what I want to do is I would probably want to child this object here, and then I would want this to pan based off of its pivot point, but not necessarily do circle, but like as the wind changes direction, you probably would want some kind of algorithm or some kind of system that basically offsets it. And so when I think of this kind of stuff, it really brings me back to expressions within After Effects, which is a kind of a different thing, but within After Effects, you can set expressions that basically create offsets, so values and the amount that you change stuff. And so, for instance, it could be, you can do a wiggle on something, and basically it would take an object, and then you could say, all right, let it wiggle 1, 10, and then that would basically say, all right, the power of 1 with the speed of 10, and then it would wiggle kind of in a different direction in this one. And so you can use the same kind of theory in terms of how you set up these blueprints, even though it's specific to the game engine there. So just something to note, that was something tricky, and the next step that I'm working towards is actually our Ferris wheel here. This is something I'm probably going to do in the blueprint, but before I actually stream and show it, I got to make sure I figure out how to do it correctly, otherwise I'm going to feel stupid on the internet in front of everybody. But this is not animated through the game engine. This is actually an animation on the model itself. And so this specific file here, let's go to my wide view here. If I go on my content and I stop searching for glass and go to effects, objects, Ferris wheel, where is it? Ferris wheel. You can see there's actually 3 different models of each type, which, so I can bring all 3 of these in here, and I can scale all 3 up, and I'm just showing you what I'm talking about here. All right, I can scale them all up, and I can go side by side, and they're going to do 3 different things, and I'll explain kind of that aspect of it here. Alright, so we have our physics one, which we have our animation, and then we have our model. And when I play this, I want you to watch the physics one, because it's going to kind of get a little crazy and do whatever the heck it wants. So I'll play this, and you can see the animated one spins, the static one doesn't, and then the physics one reacts to the atmosphere. It has some gravity, but also it's doing some weird stuff over there, and that's just, you know, that's pretty straightforward for a game engine. It's like a rigid body in Unity, and I don't mean to use Unity terms in an Unreal development environment, but again, half of my brain's referencing stuff that I know in Unity, and the other half is using techniques I would use in here based off of like my experience and knowledge within 3D itself. And I guess the best way to explain Unity is a lot more traditional in terms of like Maya, in terms of 3D programs, versus Unreal isn't as traditional. But me getting back into this recently, I'm actually liking this a lot better. I'm not liking it better because in Unity, I like a lot of things about Unity. I just like the development real-time feel of when I bring stuff in, and I feel like I'm actually accomplishing stuff, versus Unity, it's a little bit more work to bring in stuff and get it looking good. But again, that's just kind of a silly statement that doesn't really, you know, they all have their purpose and they all can do the same things. And really, Unreal just gave us a lot of stuff to work with, like this background mountain and a lot of this stuff. It's available for anybody to use, and it allows you to have a jump start in terms of making something look good, like this scene here. And so just something to keep in mind, that that it's a little quirky when it comes to importing models there. So enough about that. Let's go ahead and take our windmill here, and I guess what we can do is we can just continually we probably could just parent all this stuff, assuming it lets me do that. Alright. And that will just make it one item, which makes it a little bit easier to manage. which I'm always a fan of manageable assets. And, you know, like, I could rename this and this for... I'm a perfectionist, which is annoying, but it's just the way it is. Windmill. Okay, and so now we can drag the whole thing as one item, and it shouldn't affect the spinning because... but also note that when you play in this specific model, it just... There's another thing I like about Unreal. This is the default setting. You replace the scene camera with your character, and you can just kind of start where you are. You don't have to start in the place of where your spawn point is. So it makes it very easy for testing the environment, and that's just one way you can do it. There's obviously you can add, you can do it the traditional method where you just have a spawn point everywhere. But I actually like this for the development because it allows me to bounce around pretty easily. So what we're going to just do for now is just put these up on the hill. I also want to scale it up a bit because if you ever drive through California hills going to like Bear Valley or Tahoe, you'll know that there's this section in Tracy, California, I believe it is, or Angels Camp more specifically, you go through where there's hundreds of these windmills, and this is a throwback dedication to that part of my life, driving to our cabin growing up in the Bay Area. And so I'm trying, again, this specific, one of the games I'm creating is a throwback memory of when I was a kid of the Bay Area hills and an expansive gameplay aspect of that. So I'm creating like a mini version. At first I wanted to actually use real mapping, but then I realized the scale of that would be completely obnoxious. So here's where I actually have to duplicate this, and you know, I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm just going to put a few here, and then of course we'll offset it so it's a little bit different. Maybe this one's lower down right here, and we'll put a third one up on the hill over there. So we're not going to have hundreds, but we're going to have 3, which is a good amount for me. All right, so we got our third one here, and all right, let's put this one that way. Doesn't really matter. I'm gonna fix them as we go, and then I find the easiest way to move is just click on something and zoom in on it, and then we can just play and see what that looks like. So. Are they spinning? Okay, so they're not spinning, but that's because these are, I forgot, these are different. So I'll probably have to copy the blueprint. The original one's spinning. So I can probably just recreate a blueprint and then duplicate that, and then they'll all spin. But I'm not going to worry about that for now. You can see that we have some windmills on the hill. I'll probably scatter them throughout, and they look, you know, they look pretty good. They blend in. I love that satellite on the hill over there. It's so awesome. And so again, all these things in one of the experiences I'm creating in the games, they're all going to be interactive, and they're going to be missions that you go to. I'm going to say that much. I'm not going to say the title of the game or the gameplay or what you're doing, but there's a reason why these things are all being put out in the distance. They're not just for looks. They're actually going to be things that you interact with and have to engage at some point when you get to that in the actual game. Okay, so we'll get out of there. We got our windmill set up, and I'll have to figure out how to duplicate the blueprints later. I'll just drop this in the objects, save it out, and we will just go ahead and let's see what we got. Okay, so I am, and sorry, sometimes I forget that I'm not on my main screen, and so I'm talking and not showing. So you probably didn't see everything I was talking about there, which is kind of why I like this third person view, is that it allows for me to just show everything without having to worry about it. But I know you necessarily can't see all the details that you'd want to see if you're interested in something I'm doing. But you can see kind of everything that I get to see, which I find interesting. Okay, so one thing I wanted to do is just create a little point light that blinks. And so it's pretty straightforward and it's easy to do. You can go into lights here and you can create a point light, right? And you can make it blink. And so if I were just to do that, drag it in there, I can go up here, right? And then so this tower would have a point light right at the tip, and you'd actually probably want to model a little light to be there, so it's not just a blinking light. It doesn't look like it's showing up though. So the only downside to having this little player is that sometimes I just want to play it without the player so it stays in place. And also that this tower is pretty small. But this is where I actually want to take something that somebody's already created and see if there's something good in there for us to use. So let's just look at our packs we imported here. So if I just go type in light, see what comes up. And so this is one of those things where it'd probably be better if I just import. There we go. Check this out. I got like a. See, this is a generator. This is cool. Whoa. Why did it drop it there? It's kind of a weird place. So this is just one of the things that I imported. So this is relevant to the game, so we'll probably use something like this. But I'm more interested in the lights that people attach these things, because we're going to steal one right here. So let's make sure I zoom in to where I want to place it. So let's like go over somewhere by here. And let's just see if I can find something here. Okay, so this is a light post. This is good, but I don't think it's textured, to be honest. Looks like this is set up. Yeah, so sometimes I find it's better to actually go into the demo where somebody has actually set up something and I can just steal it from them versus trying to recreate it myself. I just find that people are more knowledgeable about this stuff than myself, and I'm learning, but I got a pilot light here. But I'd rather kind of take something that somebody's already figured out and reuse it. Sometimes. Okay, so that's alright. It's a little bit, I kind of need to go in one of these folders though, and construction. Let's go into mesh. See if there's any lighting in here. So this is where we just found that generator I was just talking about. I'm gonna put an outhouse by there. That's funny. That's what I love, when you just bring it in and then it just compiles the shaders on the fly. I think it's super cool. I wish all programs did that. You know, we could just drag in materials all day and launch it. Pretty fun. Road closed. All right. So I'm not seeing anything that represents a light here. It looks like these don't have lights attached to them, which is unfortunate. Also note that if you're playing the game, it never saves it when you exit out. So, and see, I think it even reported that there. It said, let's say, and I was talking about being movable. So I used to do that a lot in my career of learning how to create, create 3D experiences within game engines, where I would put a bunch of stuff in, I forget it was playing, then it paused, and then I would stop playing it, and everything I added would just disappear. So something you learn the hard way. If you're, and again, I'm just randomly placing stuff here, kind of like exploring while I share with everybody the process. Nothing that I'm laying out really makes too much sense in terms of where it needs to be. I'm just scattering. I'm just trying to get all my 3D objects in here textured, and then I can reuse them somewhere else and re-import them. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. We got the construction. One of these scenes has got to have a 3D or a light attached to it. Got some hoses there. I don't know what those hoses are all about. Oh, some big industrial hoses. Okay, so none of that is... So one thing, I got some lighting here, but that's just the scene lighting. One thing I like to do is I actually like to separate my particles from my objects, and that's kind of what everybody's doing in these mini folders, but the problem is they're all their separate projects, and if I start moving stuff around, it breaks things. So let's check out the... Alright. Let's go to our Epic Launcher here. Let's go to the Marketplace. Let me just see what happens when I search it for light. That's kind of a broad thing, but even stuff like this might help us here. Oh, you know what? I did download this light profile pack. That would be good. It was free. So we can probably use one of these and just change the color of it, huh? I'm specifically looking for something like a... that's interesting. Okay, so this does seem to be our best bet here, is just bringing a simple point light. You just can't really see it up there because it's so bright. It almost is a waste of a light when you can't see it. What I can do is I can change it to a traditional color like that, and that's what you would expect from one of these towers, right? And then I can just... I guess I can make it really bright up there. I just couldn't see it, and the whole point of this is so you can see it from far away. And then I'll make it, you can see it blinking in the distance. So it does reflect, and it does actually seem to do what we want. And I could, like I said, I can model a little light we can slap on top of that. I wonder if... What is this? Why aren't these being... I forget why these trees are not working. Okay, you can see it better when there's no light. Which... Let's see what happens when I play that. Alright. Oh, I forgot, though, that when you toggle it off in the editor, it still shows in the real game. That's one thing I actually think they would change in this. I don't understand, and again, I'm getting back into this engine, but I don't get why you can't toggle it off, but keep it in the scene. Like if it's in this, if it's in the hierarchy, the outliner, it shows up. And I would like to have an option of that not happen. Because that's like kind of more the lighting I would want for like a nighttime scene. You can see, you can really see that in the distance. It looks cool. But I don't necessarily want to delete this stuff here. So this would be like a night scene. And now that I think about it, it looks like there's actually three lights up there that you need. Okay. Looks like there's supposed to be lights on these. Or this actually might be the reflection there. So what happens if I change the intensity to like, yeah, I don't know. What I need is I need some kind of glass that reflects this outward. Let's see if we can steal something here. So this is definitely where I would bring in like a model from the outside. Well, I'm not going to worry about that now because we are focusing on just, we're not focusing on the environment so much as we are the aesthetics here. I also realize that this thing needs to be rebuilt, so let me see what happens when let's just try rebuilding this real quick. Alright, it's rebuilding the lighting. If you can see that. I'm in the way. It's right there. So we'll let that rebuild and we'll start focusing on something else. See if it actually looks different when it's done. I always worry that when I rebuild something, it's just going to totally screw up everything. There's no mercy when you screw up in these engines. They just like cache the new fix and the parameters you set, and even if you can even undo, sometimes it doesn't undo what you wanted to do. Okay, what's going on here? Why is it doing what it's doing? I wonder if my froze up on me. We still streaming here? Yeah, we're still streaming. Yeah, we've been streaming for an hour and a half. Okay, what's going on here? I lost my grass for a second. Alright, there we go. Interesting. So the grass actually stopped showing up now when I remodeled it. It only shows up when I play it. Okay. Well, as long as the grass is in the final one, I guess it's alright. Let me just try let's just save all this real quick. I'm gonna open this back up. See if that fixes our grass thing here. Okay. Let's see if reopen that if it fixes something. There we go. So, as you can see, sometimes the engine just gets a little confused and has to refresh, and the cache has to reset. So, for some reason, when I rebaked it, the grass stopped showing up unless I was in play mode. And you also notice, and this is something I learned yesterday, that Unreal actually fixed their rendering where you render from back to front, which is why you see the grass comes at you. And traditionally, most engines render forward rendering, right? I don't really know what deferred rendering means. I just know forward rendering means it renders out. This is, I guess, backwards rendering. I don't know what they call it. Maybe this is called deferred. But I don't know what the advantage of that is. But there's obviously a reason they do it. It is unique to this engine. And I guess as long as it's fast enough when you're playing, or like when you start the game and you load the level, as long as this grass is already loaded before you see it, it doesn't really matter which way it comes in. The only downside would be probably if you actually watched, usually you have a screen hiding, stuff loading. We do what's called asynchronous loading. And it means that you load stuff in the background while you're showing like a loading screen or something. And that's like why in most games you have a loading screen. It's obviously loading it and preparing it to when you get into that level, it's already there and it's not doing all the work it needs to do. So, what's next? Let's start working on some more things here. All right, our soda machine, we successfully got that in, so we'll go ahead and ditch that. I'm gonna go ahead and close our blender here. Okay. And I do like keeping my windows separate in here. I was even trying to, I need to save this workout, but I actually just like it like this. And the places, because I'm not placing anything, I just hide that for now. And window viewports. Save layout. Alright. This is going to be called DGFX. Our favorite layout. In case somebody is wondering why. There you go. So, it saves it in a really interesting area, huh? It saves it in the original Epic game launcher, not the I actually changed where the vault saves everything just because I have a terabyte drive specifically just for Unreal stuff. I do this for all the engines and all the assets just to keep them separately so I can bounce them around. But in my computer here, I don't have everything plugged in. I don't have my networking set up, but this one computer has 5 terabytes. I'm using a M2 really super fast thing for the C drive, which I got to clean this up, and then I have 4 Western Digital black or drives which aren't fast, but the whole thing is you're just saving assets that don't really need to be. You're pulling them when you need them, and then they load into the RAM, which is on the original C drive. So that's how you should probably be developing. I got to clean up this bay right here, this bay drive, but this is just our Unreal stuff right here. You see the Vault Cache, and then the 2 different engines, and then plenty of space to download a lot of the sample stuff. But anyways, so we got our soda machine out of the way, so I'll drag it to the other side, and let's move on. Door Windows kit setup. What's this one all about? I don't know, but let's do it. Okay. Alright, door Windows setup. So I don't like how it doesn't tell you if it's an FAX or an OBJ here. It just says 3D object, which I forget how you show the extensions, but I know there's a way to do it. Windows show extensions. Start Windows Explorer. You can do this, blah, blah, blah. Click organize. Yeah, so it's a freaking ordeal. I don't want to do it. It's not that hard, but. So we got our FBX here. Let's go ahead and let's just try to see what happens. So door window. But I already did that wrong. I don't want that there. I have to go to GFX and level 1 build data. Oh, that's because I build it. Interesting. Okay. Import. All right. So, how long have we been streaming for here? I'm gonna take a quick break, but I'm gonna come back on in a little bit. So, where is my streaming? It's gotta be this one. All right. I guess I'll stream for another 20 minutes or so, and then I'll come back at around 6 for another couple hours. Let's take a half-an-hour break there, just to make sure it's still working. All right. So, I forgot to say, I forgot to mention that I didn't have the latest BIOS on this computer, and it was doing a bunch of funky stuff, and I recently updated the BIOS to the latest one, and it definitely seems to be more solid in terms of a custom build, PC build there. So something to note, that you're getting the blue screen and you're like, what's going on? And you bought a bunch of new stuff. Like, it's probably just because it's drivers and the system isn't updated. So update everything, get all your latest drivers, make sure everything Windows Update's good, and for the most part it should give you a more stable build to where it can handle everything that you see I'm doing here. Obviously this processor is fast. It's a 10-core i9, which can handle all this, but it was, even this build was crashing on me, which it shouldn't. Alright. Okay. So we got our door set up. So I wonder what happens. I think this is a building kit right here, which is good. I'm dragging my textures. This is like my favorite kind when it's just one texture. I mean, this is traditionally how you do game, how you set up game models, just because they're very light. The only downside is they're not as you can't really delete parts of it. It's kind of all or nothing here, but they have it UV mapped to where it's all been taken care of there. That's our normal. That is our, this is where I have to reference, that's going to be our ambient occlusion, which is the first one that I've seen of this since I've started streaming here. Ambient occlusion, this one's going to be our metallic. And then lastly we have our roughness. So this is traditionally what I've been seeing. I don't really see specular too much. Oh wait, this is emissive. Why was I putting in specular? What a doofus I am. No wonder why. so emissive is its own one. I just wasn't overlooking that. Okay. So that should work. And you can organize it to your fancy, how you seem fit. You know, it doesn't really matter. And just apply that. Okay. And let's just go ahead and drag all these out and see what it does for us. Okay, so this one definitely needs to be, you know, you're building it yourself. But now you have textured objects that can be used. So, you got this little door right here. So you can make some kind of cool warehouse. So we will be using that, but I am not going to use it here yet. Okay, and let's put that all in there. This one should be here. So radio tower, let's go ahead and child our, where's our radio tower? Right there. Okay. Okay. It's good. Done. So that's kind of models we like, the ones that are just really, really easy. Farm stand, farm shed, actually. All right. What's this one all about? Oh, is this the one I just had? No, this is different. Aussie Farm Sheds, Cinema 4D and FBX. So we're just going to take the FBX. This one does give you a Cinema 4D file. And we're just kind of fishing out the stuff we need here. This is a very basic model, so. Farm shed. Okay. Alright. Alright. Objects. New object. Farm shed. Import. Alright. Import that. Import our two textures as well when we can. You know, even though it's only one object, it's importing 243 items, and I wonder if that's just like the surfaces of the model, or I wonder what that's counting when it says 253 there. Alright, it's almost done. Come on. I also have to make sure I don't cut myself off of my arm over here. I'm going to stay in this direction. Okay, so it is importing. It's just stuck in the last one. Come on, baby. You can do it. I believe in you. Believe in you. You ever click on something to hope that it speeds it up? to do it all the time. This is where I'm not really sure if it's the engine freezing or if it's just thinking about something. Because according to this, it's the engine freezing. It's not responding. But if you wait, sometimes it will respond a little bit. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and take a break here, get this imported, and I'll come back in a little bit. We'll continue. So, anybody checking this out, if you came in for a few minutes, thank you for taking the time, and I look forward to continue sharing our development at DigiFX with Unreal Engine along with the other game engines and programs we use in the near distant future. I'm your host, Nate Millett, and until next time, see you in a bit.